All right, everyone. Well, thank you all for coming. We're very excited about this second conversation around audio description for dance. I'm really excited to hear what Krishna and Kayla have to share with us today. We'll just give a minute, a little minute more to get as many people in as well. You can still continue to come in. And again, this is being recorded. I will ask you all to turn off your cameras when we get started so that we have a better connectivity. And we will be recording this though, so it will be available just like the last conversation was available. April will be emailing out to everyone who registered the link when it's ready. So let's go ahead and get started in the interest of time, because we have a lot to say. And my name is Celia Hughes. I'm the Executive Director of ArtSpark Texas and a longtime audio describer. And I am really, really happy to be hosting this series of conversations around audio description for dance. I think dance is one of the frontiers that we haven't been able to really establish a good audio description practice for. And so I'm thrilled to be able to talk with some of the leaders in the industry right now about audio description, and in particular audio description for dance. So your chat feature has hopefully been turned off. For those of you who may not know, chat is very disruptive for people who use screen readers or other technology when they operate on the computer, and a chat will override what the screen reader is saying to them and becomes very disruptive. So if for some reason you have learned how to get around the fact that the chat has been disabled, please don't use it. We will have an opportunity at the end of this conversation to open up to everyone for questions. So if you have questions, just make note of that, and we will hopefully be able to get to all of your questions at the end of the conversation. And I hope you understand why we have disabled chat. As I said earlier, there will be a recording of this. And we will be making it available, and looking forward to bring continuing conversations moving on. The next one will be in October, but I'll talk about that at the end. So our two guest speakers today are Krishna Washburn and Kayla Hamilton. They are both dancers in their own right. And I'm just going to say briefly that Kayla is a Texas-born, Bronx-based performance maker, dancer, educator, cultural consultant, and the artistic director of K. Hamilton Projects. Her work aims to build an embodied and collective movement that uplifts the lives, stories, and creations of all Black disabled people. And she has developed Crip Movement Lab, which is a pedagogical framework centering cross-disability accessibility movement practices that are open to everybody. And Krishna Washburn is the artistic director and sole teacher of Darkroom Ballet, a professional dance curriculum designed for the educational needs of blind and visually impaired people like herself, and is the only course of its kind in the English-speaking world. Darkroom Ballet curriculum is composed of an 8-week introductory level course for students who have no prior knowledge of ballet or dance, an open level class, and a number of workshops. So that's enough about them. I'm going to let them tell you more about how wonderful they are. And I'm going to go ahead and spotlight both of them. And there we go. So Kayla and Krishna, the floor is yours. So can you tell us, just in as many words as you'd like, who are you and what do you do? Why don't we go with Kayla first?
Hi, everyone. This is Kayla speaking. Who am I? I'll start by saying I am a dark-skinned Black person. I have short dreadlocks. I am what I identify as fat. You already know, I'm Texas born, country girl. I'm a daughter, a sister, an auntie, a friend, and becoming more and more a lover of myself. I'm a dancer, choreographer, creator, thinker, in the body, of the body, with others. And I have a deep love for people and my work. And when I say my work, I mean my work being my work as in my humanity, and the work that I do as a creator, maker, choreographer. And I know the word better is complicated, but my work, all of my work, hands moving into a circle, is for us as in humans to be together better. In thought, Krishna.
That's a hard act to follow. I am Krishna. My pronouns are she and her. I am reporting from the beating heart of Central Harlem, up in Lenapehoking, up in Upper Manhattan. And I am a blind lady, and I don't self-describe. And I'm immunocompromised, and I have had to socially isolate for 3.5 years. Um, in addition to teaching dance technique to blind and visually impaired students around the world, I also teach audio description, and some of you here today are studying audio description with me. I also teach anatomy. That doesn't require knowledge of a diagram, it just requires that you remember to bring your own human body to class. I really think of myself more than anything as an educator. I really think that the arts educator's role in the arts community is unfairly diminished. I think that all of us, whether we are choreographers, performers, administrators, educators, we're all incredibly important in order to keep our community functioning, and we need to de-hierarchize those categories. I feel like with my heart of hearts, like I was born to be a dance teacher. If you asked me when I was 3, what do you want to do? I'd be like, that's me. And ableism made me wait for that for a very long time. And it was during that kind of miraculous brief period during the early pandemic when people started to remember that disabled people exist, that kind of started to change. I have had a performance career. I will, I guess, sometimes perform if tricked or coerced. But my greatest happiness is being an arts educator, especially to other disabled people. Thanks, everybody. Celia, talk to us.
That's great. And thank you so much. It's such an honor to be in the presence of both of you. We're gathered today to talk a little bit about, in particular, the impact on dance, or the impact on your movement, on your work, of audio description, which is defined as, the verbal translation of visual information. And so both of you, as dancers, as visually impaired dancers, have taken on the this challenge of describing dance in a way that is meaningful and engaging for not only the dancers who may be blind, but also your participants. And so I was wondering, let's start with Kayla. Do you want to talk a little bit about your dance practice right now and how it incorporates and encompasses audio description?
This is Kayla speaking. Sure. I guess a simpler, you don't have to do that, Kayla. I use audio description in my choreographic work as a starting place. So what does that mean? It means for me, when I begin to move, audio description begins as well. So there are two dances, well, actually kind of several dances being made simultaneously. And I say several because as a maker in the body, there are many edits or shifts or changes, which means the AD or audio description also shifts and changes. So many dances happening simultaneously. How that impacts my work is that it encourages me to be clearer in what it is that I'm doing in my body, or what it is that I want, or what it is that I'm attempting to get people to perceive in my body as they experience the work. I ask questions about why the choice making of that audio description in that particular moment in time, and then how that description is read or spoken or translated throughout the arc of the work. Currently, I am really imagining the ways access is culturally specific, the ways in which work songs, line dances, different hip hop songs have AD embedded inside of the music. How games that little Black girls play outside on the street growing up can be sources of AD. So thinking about music and things that are culturally specific, specific to what I know as Blackness, can be inserted, intentional, shift, changed to make, not to make other forms of AD, but to highlight access within them. Yeah, I think I'll stop there in thought.
Okay. That Krishna, what about when we were talking about this earlier, um, you ask yourself certain questions when you are preparing to teach
Yeah.
about dance, and and some of those questions are, how does the body feel? Who is dancing? What is the language of the emotion? And so what is the structural and chronological events? But let's go to the language. Let's go to the language of the emotion. Is that something that you feel that you could, does that relate to how the body feels? Does that create a language of emotion for you?
Okay. First, I need to say that Celia is an excellent audio description student and clearly has been studying like my overview class. I really appreciate that. Teachers love it when they hear concepts that they have shared with their students reflected back to them. It's a wonderful experience. Um, I would like to say that I have been interacting with audio description for dance for a pretty long time, and I kind of feel as if there are different purposes for different moments in audio description. Like when I'm teaching, if I want to help a student learn how to try a shape or a movement, I use that first category of questioning. How does my body feel? Like, what do I notice in my skin, fascia, muscles, bones, and nerves? What I don't do is I don't talk about what my body looks like when I'm doing it, because really that's kind of besides the point, and it's not that helpful. And it's something that I have found causes a lot of stress and anxiety for myself. And I imagine it could cause stress and anxiety for my students too, because then you're interacting with something you might not necessarily be able to know. If you know you really do have your weight on the back of your left heel, and you feel it, and I feel it, we both feel that same thing, then that means we're both doing the same thing. So when I'm talking about teaching new movement, new shapes, new ways to balance, new ways to orient, I decenter sight and talk about how the body feels. Now, when we start talking about audio description for dance performance, dance for an audience, that's when those other three questions start to get integrated necessarily. Meaning, who's dancing here and why? And what is the emotional character of what's going on? And what is the shape of this dance as a whole concept? If anyone here is registered for class on Saturday, we're really going to think a lot about dances as whole things, as opposed to just a series of things that happen. I know that in audio description textbooks and training courses, they it is written that audio describers should not provide information about emotional characteristics of what's happening. It is important to remember, though, that when Gregory Fraser started to develop audio description, the media that he was working in the 1980s was television and film. That is the native habitat of audio description as we know it today. It was born from television and film. That's why we have this kind of neutral, non-editorial voice that is unobtrusive, because in television and film we have performers who are using their voices. We have sound effects. We have a composed musical score sometimes, and everything's all balanced together. There's many ways to gather contextual information about the emotional content of the work of art. In dance, however, dance is a really different art form. It's really different. And I would argue that like the whole point of dance is to express and share empathetically emotional experience. And going by the guidelines that are appropriate for television and film, you really don't get other forms of contextual information about what dance is like. I really think that when we say, okay, we omit that information, we end up having iniquity in the audience because the sighted people do know the emotional content of what's happening, and the blind and visually impaired people don't. This is also one of the reasons why I think it's important for artistic teams, choreographers, and audio describers and performers to have time and access to each other to talk about these things. So that way, everybody knows what's our goal here? What's actually happening in this piece? How do we want to communicate what's happening here? The definition that Celia read, I didn't like it because it had the word translate. Translate to me signifies like a one-to-one kind of thing. Like, I speak English, someone else might speak Spanish, and a translator will get these lined up. Like, it's true that no two languages are identical, and it's always going to be something that gets lost in translation a little bit. But with the help of a translator, people who speak two different languages are still going to be on the same page. Audio description is not really like that. Audio description is really about thinking about communicating the purpose of the dance. To ask those performers, what's this experience like for you dancing this dance? What do we want to help our audience experience? What do we want to share together? So that's kind of to put a little bow on it. That's where I stand.
I really like that. I really like the communicating the purpose rather than the translation of the information. It certainly is, for me, much more meaningful. And we'll come back to that in a minute. But I wanted to follow up with Kayla a little. And you had said that one of the facets of your work right now is trying to incorporate the language and maybe the habits and the behaviors you mentioned of young Black girls on this, playing outside. And how do you bring that feeling into your work? Can you, I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit. Can you give us an example of what you're thinking about or what you're doing in that kind of work?
This is Kayla. No.
Okay, fair enough. Kayla warned me in the beginning that she wouldn't answer questions. So, but what does that then, to take it one step further, do what you observe in that behavior help inform the audio description that you're developing?
This is Kayla. I mean, along the same lines as Krishna was mentioning, it is the essence, the joy, the magic, the community, the laughter, um, is what I desire to be captured in those moments of the things that I am finding that are culturally specific that can be access points. Because for me, these culturally specific things are joy filled, they're community filled. Nothing about it is individual. And that is what I want to bring inside, that audio description access broadly requires collective. It requires community, and that one single track of audio description will never capture everything that I wish it captured. But damn it, I'm gonna see if I can get real close in thought.
That's great. That's great. And Kayla, can I confirm, are you at this point a solo dancer, or do you work with other dancers?
This is Kayla. I started as a solo maker. However, as I begin to fully understand what it is that I'm doing, I can never be alone. So to answer your question, I start off alone because I am listening to what the work is asking of me. For me, dance making is just as much as a spiritual practice as it is a creative one. So I'm listening, and then the work tells me who should be in the room with me. But from jump, meaning from the start, it is me. And then I bring in the people who the work is asking of me to bring in. Because audio describers, whoever, whatever quote unquote role they're taking, they're adding their perspective, right? Their voice. And it needs to be for the work, because it's not about me, it's not about the describer, it's about what the work is asking of us to do, and who can help me share this experience that the work is asking with others in thought.
Thank you, Kayla. Thank you very much. So, Krishna, it's, a lot of what when I think in terms of ballet, which is really the dance that you are, the dancer that you are, yes. So much of it relies on technique and the perfection of the technique, and so, I think the perception is that, a person goes to the ballet to see this perfect technique and how people are on point and their arms are just so, and yet you sort of are deconstructing that and saying it's saying that the emotion and the story should be the dominant, at least in terms of audio description. Am I incorrect in making that assumption?
I think that when I talk about what kind of audio description works best with like traditional ballet performance, what I'm really responding to is this very like shallow and empty audio description that I sometimes hear, which is like it doesn't connect how those movements are part of a story. It doesn't tell you why those movements tell you information about that character. And I think it gives people the impression that ballet is just full of arbitrary movements that just happen. And that's just not true. That's just not what ballet is. When we want to have audio description for traditional ballet, when we leave that information out and we stop thinking about like, oh, this is a piece about this character interacting with that character, and this is the change of dynamic between them over time, and we start thinking, and then they go right, and then they go left, and then they jump, and then they come down, and like that, then you don't actually get welcomed into the art like at all. Like it feels very cold, and like why would anybody care about it then? Like who would care? No one would come back. Like it's not interesting then. Now, like when I talk about when teaching ballet is a different thing. Teaching ballet to me, because I teach from like the tradition, like the blind tradition, meaning that it's a blind teacher who teaches blind student, and I don't know how many generations back that tradition goes for myself personally, like a lot. This is not something that's been studied. This is just oral tradition kinds of things. And something I love about studying ballet is like you learn how to trust yourself and your perceptions. You learn like I really am on my balance. I really do feel like I'm reaching in the direction I want to go. I really do know I'm traveling the pathway that I'm meant to travel. My feet give me information I need. My hands give me information that I need. I don't need somebody else to tell me. I don't need that anxiety of having somebody else say, oh, because that's not the goal. The goal is to say, this is where I want to go. This is what I want to do. This is the experience I want to create from this palette of movements that I've been practicing, and to know I'm actually doing it. When I think about, you know, on the 19th, I'm teaching a variations class. And one of the variations is actually not quote unquote like a technical variation. It is Giselle's mad scene before she dies, right? You think like, why is she doing the movements that she's doing? How does it connect to her as a person? Why is this story that's like over 200 years old? Like, why is this still a story that connects to a lot of people? Like, why does this feel like a story that still matters? Like, who is this? Who is this disabled girl who's been sheltered and has not gotten to experience life? And for my students to get to try these movements and put it in themselves and know, like, yeah, what I'm projecting from myself, from my knowledge of emotional experience, from my knowledge of my own body and my own sensations, I can embody this character. Like, that's really the goal, in my opinion, like for what I seek to do as an educator as it pertains to ballet as something that you learn and as something that you experience in the audience. Thank you, Celia.
You're welcome. You know, I'm sitting here thinking as a describer that, you know, traditionally we haven't been given a lot of access to the dancers, to the choreographer. You know, it's impossible for many of us to even see a full performance before we're asked to describe. We have to go to a dress rehearsal, and you all know that, you know, there things change from a dress rehearsal. So as we begin to advocate for that to change and for describers to have more access, do you have some suggestions for a describer to to look at dance in a different way when they have this limited, instead of trying to capture, oh, she's on point. Oh, because so many describers will say, well, she turns around, he picks her up, that kind of stuff. Do you have suggestions to help a describer look at a dance performance through a new, more open lens, in terms of taking in the movement that's happening and the story that's being told? And we can start with Krishna.
I think that the number one thing that will help change audio description is time. That's the number one thing. The longer the audio describer gets to be part of the creative process, the clearer the choices to make will be. Every dance performance is different. Even dance performances of the same style, each performance is different and it has a different purpose of why it exists. Like if you go to two tap performances, the audio description for them should sound different because those are two different shows. When you get to immerse yourself as an audio describer and actually have time to talk to people and watch many times and interact a lot and really think about, like, what is this all about? That's when we start actually getting equitable descriptions. I'm going to talk a lot about this on Saturday this week, about what to do when you are an audio describer and your situation is unfair and you're being asked to do things that are unreasonable in the amount of time being offered. Because I think the problem is the word translation. A lot of people who work in arts admin, like, they don't know what audio description actually is. They think it's like, oh, well, we hire the ASL interpreter and we hire the audio describer. But those are really different jobs. They're really not the same. For an audio describer to be able to experience work over time and understand what the piece is for is so, so valuable. If you don't have time, ask for it. And if you're told no, ask me to ask for it for you. I don't care. I do not mind, getting into trouble because, like, it doesn't really matter for me. Like, I don't have a performance career anymore. Like, if you need me to yell at somebody on the phone for you, like, it will be my pleasure. I would love to, because
That's
there needs to, and I know a lot of you are audio describers here. Yeah, take me up on this. If you need Krishna to call someone and yell at them and say, hey, you're not treating your audio describer fairly and not giving them what they need, I'm happy to do that job for you. I understand sometimes, like, you just have to pay your phone bill and you got to take whatever gig comes your way. I understand. Like, I've been there. I am there right now. Like, this minute right now, I'm earning more money than I have earned so far teaching audio description workshops last month. So I understand. I understand. Now, there are things that you can think about when you are planning to do audio description, and it really comes from the perspective of thinking the piece as a whole. Think, like, why does this piece exist? Does it have to do with a narrative concept? Does it have to do with an artistic philosophy? Does it have to do with a sense of energy or physicality? And I think also, like, paying attention and noticing, like, is there any repetition here? Are there movements that happen again and again? Are there emotional things that appear again and again? That's sometimes a very good start, even when you don't have a lot of time. And if you can annoy somebody, like, on the train ride home, do it. Don't be afraid. It's good.
so Krishna is sending out audio describers to become annoying. And she's going to back you up on it. Thank you, Krishna. We have a hand raised, but we'll get to you in a minute. Don't despair, but I want to give Kayla an opportunity to respond.
Yeah, this is Kayla speaking. Just to clarify, the question is if you do not have a lot of time.
If you're not given access to the time that you need, then what can you do in order to make a more effective description?
Or, effective description is,
Well, engaging, realistic. Yeah, yeah.
I will say for the describer to have an embodied practice themselves. The describers need to be in their bodies, and it doesn't necessarily need to be dance per se, but a body practice. If you're describing and it's improvised, I suggest you dance with the dancers. That you may not have the dancer's experience, but you have your own because that's all you have anyway when you're describing. So you might as well move to feel what it could potentially look like. See a variety of dance in general, right? If your inclination is ballet, maybe go see some traditional West African. Go see, just be with dance. I suggest watching from different positions in the body. Try laying down, seated, in the corner, diagonal. Be in community with other blind and visually impaired people, period. And ask questions about likes, dislikes, and you're going to get different things, right? Because we're people, but at least you will have some information, right? And more practice. And when I say more practice, if you are experiencing dance and you're going for viewing, practice giving the AD, right? As you're viewing for your own leisure. And then the last thing is, what is like your natural experience for you? And when, whoa, is your laughter, right? So like bringing in your human in like inside of the description could also be helpful. So those are my advice if you didn't have a lot of time in thought.
I just want to add and say that I agree with all of Kayla's suggestions.
I love the embody the dance, be with the dance, go home and try to do the movements that you just witnessed on the stage. I think that's really a wonderful. Am I interpreting you correctly in that, Kayla?
This is Kayla. I mean, I would encourage you to go home and continue, but I mean, while you're audio describing, you are also moving simultaneously as you are describing. This goes back to what Krishna was speaking of about feeling. How can you express feeling if you're not feeling yourself? If you don't have some insider information about what others are feeling. Just a thought. I mean, I'm with you. Like I'm thinking with you. I'm not saying I have the answer. I'm only, I said what I said in thought.
Well, I have to say that I feel that you really are right on, because myself, I know that when I describe dance and I'm up in the booth, I'm doing the movements because I can't say what I'm thinking without actually doing the movement. And I've talked to other describers who talk about the same thing, about how they're in the booth jumping all around and moving and so I feel that there's real truth in what you're saying there, Kayla, and I appreciate you putting voice to it.
This is Kayla.
Go ahead.
I just want to circle back to being with more dance, because language, right? The more we experience, the more vocabularies may open for us. The same way that I would describe, and I'm pointing this pen or this marker at the camera, and it's like I'm dotting an I. But the way I would describe a postmodern performance will not be the same way that I would choose, because we should be making choices, choose to describe a tap performance, right? So that we have like a palette of vocabulary and sounds and things to pull from, but that requires us to be with dance more and to be with people more, meaning to be with people more, to be with people more in thought.
So before we open it up to questions, what are your feelings and how would you recommend the best way to approach a dance company that you've been at, that a describer has been asked to describe, in order to gain the access to the information and that you need in order to do your description work? And I know that Krishna has offered to shout on the phone. Do you have any suggestions or words of advice for folks to be able to carry on these conversations?
I think this is something that I have said before publicly. I think that the role of the audio describer, from my analysis, is closest to the role of the dramaturge. If a dance company uses a dramaturge, when is that dramaturge integrated into the performance preparation? I would think relatively early on in that process. That would be around when you should integrate your audio describer, because your audio describer is helping to communicate the artistic messages of your performance to your audience, to your blind and visually impaired people, in the same way that your dramaturge is trying to help you communicate to your sighted audience. I think that if you run a dance company or if you're an audio describer who is working with a dance company, that can sometimes be a helpful way of introducing a different way of thinking about working with audio describers. This isn't a person who's just doing like on the spot translation. This is someone who is communicating artistic messages.
Great. Kayla, do you have any suggestions, advice?
Kayla speaking. Yeah, this is a much larger conversation around venues and audiences. No concrete thoughts, but one thing that is surfacing that doesn't answer your question is that it is not just, sorry, I get emotional. It's not just for us, it's for everybody. And that an audience is an audience. And when you are making a choice not to consider or not to bring attention to a group, it's still a choice. So I don't think there is an answer to this specifically until we address some larger things that are a little bit above this, because we can scream like, let me in, let me in, let me in. But until we see disabled people as people, we're going to be screaming, let me in, for a very long time. in thought.
Yes, I totally agree. So I think what we'll do, we've had a couple of people have raised their hands. And so let's open it up. Go ahead and invite people to turn on their cameras, and I'm going to spotlight our two wonderful guests so that we can see other folks. If I can find Kayla. Why can't I find Kayla? So Kay Stolak had your hand up first. Kay, if you
Can I
want to
just-
unmute
can I
yourself
get
and
just
ask your
ask something?
question.
Can I ask something quickly? Could there at least be room at the end or something for those of us who can't do the hand raising thing?
Yeah, this is
Uh,
Andre. Please let Andre talk.
Okay, all right, Andre, I will let you come in first.
Oh, I don't need to come in first. I just
Okay.
want to make sure I can come in.
We will get you. Let's hear from Kay first.
Hi, this is Karen Krolock, and I will use the type of visual description that I learned from Kayla. I am a tangle of knots and long white hair today, feeling a little bit washed out and a lot tangled up. One of the questions that came to me as I was listening to both of you describe your movement practices was, how do you feel about people who want to do audio description taking classes from you as a way of being able to learn about shifting out of our visually based way of thinking about movement and into the way that is led by people thinking from a different perspective? I know that like Darkroom Ballet has ballet classes, but my sense has been that they're designed more for people with blindness, low vision, and that like as a sighted person stepping into that space feels like it might be disrespectful. How do you feel about that, and what might be the pros and cons of doing that?
Karen, this is Krishna. Um, it is true that my classes are designed for the educational needs of blind and visually impaired people, and I teach from the blind tradition. I get to choose who studies with me. Isn't that fabulous? People get to send me a registration form and I get to know who they are. If you want to come take technique class with me, you can. There are sighted people who study with me. And the sighted people who study with me are people who are embedded in blind and visually impaired culture, meaning they are educators, they are arts providers like yourself. So if you want to come and take class with me, listen, let me tell you something. I have taught sighted students blind posture, the way that we stand, and a lot of them actually say that the way that blind traditional posture works is actually works better than the posture taught to sighted people in ballet class. So you tell me which one's better then. Yeah, so if you want to come take class, you can. Like I love teaching people who like to learn. And yeah, sometimes getting used to hearing me talk and move and I don't shut up, and talking about tape and talking about body instead of appearances, and also the fact that I can't possibly reverse my movements because I'm talking and dancing simultaneously. Yeah, it takes a little bit getting used to for sighted folks, but if you want to come and learn, like, I know that your interest is sincere and authentic, and we dance in a sincere and authentic way in my class. So yeah, you can come take class, of course.
Excellent.
So Kayla, was there anything in that question that you wanted to respond to?
This is Kayla. Yeah, I feel just as we are moving into, we all to some degree move into communities that we do not belong to, that there is a listening and a listening to that I would hope, that is present as we enter spaces. that we don't necessarily belong to. Just, but that doesn't, for me, mean that one can't also belong. But you know, in Black space, we'd be like, know your role, like know where you are. And then when you have questions, ask. Yeah, in thought.
Thank you, Kayla. So we're going to go to Ruth Kahn and then go to Andre.
I just wanted to thank you both for changing my world. It is so liberating to know that describing emotions are so much more important than describing a ballet position. And having everything be in context and in community is my instinctual way of working anyway. And I will be much more open and free in my description going forward. I will also know the questions to ask of any companies requesting description from now on. It's similar to when I describe a musical. I need access to rehearsals, the script, the video, performances. I need it all. And it's the same for, and I'm also a singer, so I know it's involved. And I need that. And I took tons of dancing as a younger person. So and I'm starting to dance again now. So I thank you for confirming all of my instincts about this work and for doing the work that you do. And I wish that I could take your classes. Thank you. Thank you.
Ruth, you can take my class on Saturday. Just send an email to info@darkroomballet.com.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
It's a class about ways of approaching script preparation for audio description. Yes, you can come. We'd love to have you.
Okay, terrific. So Andre?
Yeah, moderator, what's your name? I've
My name
forgotten.
is Celia Hughes.
Celia Hughes. And are you an audio describer?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So like I have a question for you kind of, but
Okay.
for Krishna and Kayla to sort of talk about or whatever. But when you prepared to become an audio describer, I don't know if you took classes or you just experienced, did you think of yourself as a performer or as an artist? And I ask that because, like, you know, that description of audio description for theater, for movies and theater, it sounds like a skill. You know, you learn what kind of words to use and how to be neutral. And when you're describing dance, I mean, I think in Krishna's class, we talk about audio description as being an art form. And I was thinking also, like Krishna said, you know, it's different from ASL, but it doesn't seem to me that it's that different from like ASL for music or for music performance, in terms of that the interpreter has to be an artist. They're not just interpreting. So I wondered what you think about that, and if you see yourself as an artist.
Oh, I absolutely think that audio description is an art form. I took my first training over 20 years ago. I had not knowing what it was, and certainly my understanding and knowledge of it has evolved over time. But I feel very much like being a describer is being an artist. Like you said, you have to choose your words, you have to create emotion, or identify emotion and come up with words that evoke that emotion in other people. I think the better the describer, you'll discover an artist at heart, really, in terms of their description. And I see that Krishna and Kayla are both nodding their heads. So do either of you want to jump in and talk to a little bit about this?
Well, I just want to say that Andre is one of my technique students and is a great dancer and also a really brilliant person, and I'm so honored to be his teacher. I like the comparison that you made to ASL for music as a relationship, audio description for dance, ASL for music. And I think that that's actually a really good comparison. It's much tighter, I think, than even thinking about audio description for film and audio description for dance. It is really a very much more artistically informed thing to do. And I think that that's just like a really excellent comparison. And thank you so much for coming today.
So always. I'm curious, Krishna. I mean, I don't want to take up too much time, but like you and Kayla haven't had time in this space to interact with each other. You're sort of both answering the questions. Do you have anything you think about what she's saying or vice versa, or that you would say to her or want to say to her?
I mean, as it relates to the things that Kayla has shared today, I Kayla and I, like, we really we share actually a lot of shared artistic philosophies. We have very like unique approaches to the art that we make, and we have unique approaches in like the goals we have, but underneath it all, we really approach things with the things that we care about are the same, basically. So every time you hear Kayla expressing a thought or an idea, just know that in my little box over here in my kitchen, that I have like every tooth in the grin, and I have like both thumbs up pumping on either side of my face, because we need to have that kind of community in blind and visually impaired community. Like, everybody should be allowed to make the art that they uniquely should make. But when you know that there are other artists who are creating from that same place of care for other people and care for their audience and care for their community, I mean, what's not to love about that? I mean, I love Kayla with all my heart and soul. Like, she means everything to me. And I'm so happy that I live in a universe where she exists.
Yeah, I could just say, Kayla, one more thing, but when I heard you tearing up over that, what you were saying about just that bigger picture of who the audience is, I think is what you were saying. I mean, aren't we the audience? Also, I really related to that.
Thank you, Andre. Kayla, do you want to?
This is Kayla, full transparency. I don't want to speak because I'm going to cry again. And I have a rehearsal after this, and I'm not trying to go there right now, but I have lots to say. But thank you, Andre. And yes, Krishna and I are aligned in a lot of ways in thought.
So we've come to the end of our time together. I want to thank Krishna and Kayla for being so gracious with their time, being here with us today. I learned a lot, and I am grateful for you sharing your thoughts and your artistry with us. We will make this recording available, and all of you, anyone who registered, it will be available. April will send out the link when it is. And it's kind of interesting. I'm thinking our next conversation, I haven't lined up who it's going to be with yet. I have some ideas, but we are going to be talking about dance in the movies. And so we'll be talking about, I got this idea when I was watching An American in Paris film on the plane, and there's this big long, like 20-minute dance sequence, and I thought we have to really dissect this and really talk about how do we describe dance on film. So because we have no access to the actors or to anyone in that kind of situation. So look forward to that. You'll get an email. It will be in October. And until then, everyone, please be safe. Go out and be artistic and engaging describers, dancers, people, humans, audience, and go with grace.
This is Kayla. Thank you, everyone. Kayla waves into the screen with both hands.
Thank you, Celia, for having us today. It was a wonderful time.